Gurave Namaha. Dear ones in self, I am Deepanjali from Puducherry, South India. As part of the April seminar, I am presenting a paper on Advaitha Deepika. The Advaitha Deepika is a beautiful philosophical poem written by Narayana Guru. It almost explicitly deals with answering a fundamental philosophical problem from the Vedantic point of view. We all know that a jnanasu or seeker is a person who seeks answers to two basic questions. Who am I and what is this world? A jnani is a person who has realized the ultimate reality and lives inseparable from that reality. When a seeker approaches a jnani who is willing to share his vision of truth with a seeker, they become disciple and guru respectively. The guru would then instruct the seeker that the reality underlying the seeker's existence and the apparent world is one and the same, and it can be called the Sat. The Sat is pure consciousness substance or Chit in essence. The Chit aspect of reality results in the appearance of the apparent forms of the seeker and her world for the sole purpose of realizing its own ananda or value content. Now, it is for the seeker to contemplatively meditate on her guru's words and see for herself the oneness of truth underlying everything. The most important roadblock that a seeker faces in her path to realization is how to make sense of the unity of existence, given that the seeker and her world seem to have existence of their own. She may then ask, if only one ultimate reality exists, then how come this world with its multifarious entities are still visible to me? Another question that is complementary to this question would be, if only one ultimate reality or Sachidananda only exists, then what is the status of my own undeniable conscious existence? So, here the seeker is facing the difficult conundrum of synthesizing three aspects of knowledge: seeker's individual self, the apparent world, and the ultimate truth. Without attaining clarity of understanding on this aspect of wisdom teaching, the seeker cannot progress any further. With utmost kindness that is so natural to him, Narayana Guru lights the Advaitha Deepika, or the lamp of known duality, to dispel this darkness. There are 19 verses in this poem, and in Guru's own unique style, the question occupies the very center of the poem, that is, the verses 9 and 10. Here I read those verses. Vishwam viveka dashayingalarinu sarvam asvastamagilum adindriya drishyamagum dikkin brahmam vidugilum chiramingivande drikkinnu dikku punarangane tanne kaanam സത്യത്തിലില്ല ഉലകം സകലം വിവേക വിധ്വസ്തമായ പിറകും വിലസുന്നു മുൻപോൽ നിസ്തർക്കമായി മരുവിലില്ലിഹ നീരമെന്നു സിദ്ധിക്കിലും വിലസിടുന്നിതു മുൻപ്രകാരം. The English translation by Guru Muni Narayana Prasad reads, the entire world in the state of discriminative awareness becomes separated out as having no existence of its own. Still, it continues to be perceptible to the senses. Even after becoming free from the confusion of directions, to the viewer's eye the confused directions continue to be the same. Really, the world has no existence, yet it looms real as before. Even after being completely annihilated as a result of discriminative awareness, even after becoming fully convinced that doubtlessly no water is present in mirage, it looms to be so as before. And for answering these questions, Narayana Guru uses a number of analogies throughout the composition. Actually, There are hardly any verses in this composition in which analogies are not presented. The different analogies help to systematically correct the epistemological errors that mar the vision of a true seeker. Specifically, the analogy of the snake and the rope has been used 4 times in the poem, each time to highlight subtle points involved in accurately imbibing the nature of ultimate reality. The first 8 verses of Advaitha Deepika establishes in no uncertain terms that the reality underlying the world appearance as well as the seeker is pure and unconditioned consciousness. Verse 9 and 10, as previously mentioned, presents the problem of seeker's continued world experience. And what kind of understanding will help to resolve this basic doubt? This is explained in the next 7 verses. And the last 2 verses pertain to the penetrative contemplation that the seeker should pursue to attain certainty of the unity vision that Advaita stands for. Now, we are ready to go through the meaning content of the verses. The seeker is a seer of her world, and she is an inalienable part of it also. Hence, the reality underlying the world is also necessarily the reality underlying her. Given that this is so, what exactly constitutes the world? The Guru tells us that world is constituted by names in thousands, mental images or pratibhas in thousands, and corresponding perceivable objects in thousands. By including the pratibha or the bright mental image formed in the perceiver's mind as one of the constituents of the world, Guru reminds us that there is no world experience which does not have a one-to-one correspondence in the perceiver's mind. The world, which has been described so, is taken for granted to be the real reality only by an unquestioning mind. Doing so is just like taking dreams for truth. Although while we dream, we do not for a moment doubt its veracity. When we wake up, we realize that whatever was seen in the dream was unreal and has no existence of its own. Dream was just a projection of mental images already existent in our own mind. Upon waking up, the dream vanishes into its origin, that is the dreamer's mind. Similarly, this world, including the seeker, is like a dream experience happening in the ultimate reality, which is nothing but unconditioned consciousness. The dreamlike world has no existence other than this consciousness. Notice that Guru uses the term Neram Unarnalavu in the last line of the first stanza, and this would mean to the extent to which true awakening happens. A dreamer could be prone to a partially awakened state where it is still not clear whether such a dream exists or not. Likewise, only a truly awakened one realizes that the world has no existence on its own, and its existence is actually the existence of reality. The world experience is an act of perception that happens in seeker's mind. Just now we saw that. Without the perceiving mind, the world has no existence of its own. Further, the world and the perceiving mind are effects which have no existence apart from the causal reality. In the scorching heat of the desert, people often perceive mirages which give the impression of water flowing. In reality, no water exists. Mirage exists only in the perceiver's mind. The effect called mirage is inseparable from the cause called perceiver's mind. Just like water, which appears as waves in an ocean. What is experienced as the transient existence of wave to the perceiver's eyes? Nothing but the eternal existence of water. Now let us approach this concept from the side of the innumerable perceived objects that form part of this world. Guru has adopted an analytical method very much in line with modern scientific inquiry. A cloth piece, for example, is composed of nothing but yarn. Yarn in turn is nothing but cotton fibers. Cotton fibers in turn are made up of subtler constituent elements. Ancient Indians believed that there are 5 basic constituent elements: earth, water, fire, air and space. But these basic elements cannot ever be physically perceived in their pure states. Rather, their existence is as ideas in our consciousness. From the point of view of modern science, different kinds of energy particles could be thought of as forming the basic constituents of the physical world. Yet, the existence of these subtle particles again is in the form of ideas formulated in the scientist's mind. And the mind is nothing but consciousness in substance. Through the first 3 verses, Narayana Guru has established that reality is unconditioned consciousness. Hence, in ontological terms, reality is only one. No 2 realities exist. Then how is that world appear to be composed of various entities with individual existence? And to explain this, Guru points out in verse 4 that the unconditioned consciousness is a functional reality. As part of his functional unfoldment, numerous experiences constantly appear to evolve from it. However, even these changeful experiences are nothing but consciousness alone in essence. If we consider the example of cloth and yarn, when yarn is seen, the cloth's existence is not found in the yarn. Similarly, the yarn's existence is not found in the cotton fiber. The non-existence of an effect in a cause prior to the effect's emergence is known as pragabhava, or the anterior non-existence. The pragabhava of the world exists in pure consciousness as an inherent possibility. However, this possibility has no existence of its own, and that is why Guru says that in the consciousness that underlies all functions does exist no world. However, there is a possibility of error in understanding this. And because of this fundamental epistemological error, one does not perceive what is really real as the real. Rather, the unreal world is counted as real. This nuisance is called avidya. However, avidya has no existence by itself and is just a functional mode of consciousness. Yet, it successfully wields the one underlying reality and conditions our mind in such a way that we perceive ourselves and all other entities as different entities or realities. This darkness of duality cast by avidya can only be dispelled by the light of vidya. Vidya is an epistemological correction applied to perceiver's understanding, whereby she perceives the real as the real and the unreal as unreal. And in the light of the right kind of knowledge, all dualities vanish. Guru also points out here that if the light of vidya gets extinguished, the darkness cast by avidya again looms large. This discriminative awareness in which reality is only realized as real does not come spontaneously to an unquestioning, unprepared mind. As far as human beings are concerned, being deluded by avidya is the rule than exception. And this darkness could be very terrifying. The fears, apprehensions and insecurities that we face in life are caused by this avidya. These are like ghosts which frighten us in darkness. And these ghosts will vanish only when the light of discrimination is brought in. So, we just saw that it is very natural for human mind to take the apparent world as real in itself. On the other hand, when one comes to know that only one pure unconditioned consciousness has existence, the apparent world would seem unreal. This could result in the seeker getting confused as to which one of these experiences are real. Guru here underscores the fact that both these knowledges are phenomenal appearances or pradidis arising in reality. The rope snake analogy is used here to make this clear. A rope is lying on the floor in a dimly lit room. A person who comes into the room mistakes it for a snake and gets frightened. Now let us imagine this same frightening experience happens to many people many times. Despite this, in reality there is no snake, only the rope exists. Both experiences that world is real and the world is unreal have the status of the non-existent snake only. The rope, which is always there, is unconditioned consciousness. And since reality is conscious of its own existence, there could be no causal reality behind it. Various objects of utility like pot, pan, plate or cup may be fashioned out of clay. But these have no existence other than that of clay substance. Clay is the reality underlying all pots and pot-like appearances. With these deliberations, the seeker has to arrive at a normative notion that everything indeed is Satchidananda. Here, Guru points out that the Satchidananda aspects of reality is not a totally novel concept that the seeker is bound to acknowledge. Rather, even when the seeker was totally unaware that the apparent world appearance has an underlying reality, she still was experiencing the Satchidananda aspects as her own Asti, Bhadi, Priya. Now, Asti is the sense of existence of oneself as well as the world. The individual consciousness or mind which constantly is perceiving oneself as well as the changing world is Bhadi. And each such act of knowing is invariably an act of evaluation also in terms of whether the experience is painful, pleasurable or indifferent. This is a Priya aspect which is nothing but the Ananda content of Atma or reality. So these individuated facets of Satchidananda is equally true for Jnani and Ajnani, or the ignorant and the realized person. However, the realized one knows that her Asti Bhadi Priya is just the Satchidananda aspects of reality, while the ignorant one does not know this. And for making this subtle point clear, Guru again brings in the rope snake analogy. So for someone who has mistaken a rope for a dangerous snake in a dimly lit room, the Asti is that the snake exists. Bhadi is that snake is seen. And Priya is the fear that snake could be dangerous. This is what happens when an Ajnani or an ignorant person experiences the world. With a vision dimmed by the darkness of avidya, the Ajnanin feels that the world is there. I am experiencing this world and this world experience is either pleasurable, painful or even neutral. Jnani, on the other hand, realizes that only unconditioned consciousness exists. Consciousness functions and resulting in this world appearance, and that consciousness wells up pains and pleasures. In case of the rope snake analogy, if light is brought into the dark place, the perceiver can instantly realize that it is just a rope and will no longer continue to see any snake there. The perceptual knowledge of the snake can be corrected and replaced by the perceptual knowledge of the rope. The perceptual knowledge of the snake can be corrected and replaced by the perceptual knowledge of the rope. But this is not true for world experience. Even when the light of discriminative awareness has dawned, a person will still continue to see the world as it was before. Experience the world as it was before. For example, imagine someone goes to a new place and mistakenly consider the south direction of that place wherever he reaches for its direction. If a localite happens to correct the visitor's wrong orientation in direction, then the visitor will come to know the real east direction. Still, whatever direction was previously mistaken as east will still continue to be there only, can be seen there only. Now, similar is the case with mirages seen by someone who is passing through a hot desert land. The person might realize that the impression of ripples of water at a distance is nothing but an optical illusion. Now, this information does not erase the person's perception of water. Keeping all this in mind, how does a seeker proceed to understand the persistence of world experience, even when fully convinced that in reality only unconditioned consciousness exists? The seeker should realize that sense perception is not an event of one perceiving another. It is one consciousness reality that unfolds itself as the perceiver, the perceived object, and the act of perception. And during sense perception, the manifest or the Vyakrita forms of the unmanifest or Avyakrita, unconditioned consciousness, gets rid of their conditionings and realize their essential inherent oneness. And hence, what the seeker had construed as world experience was in reality the unity experience of one Atma. And the self-manifestation of one consciousness, which is Satchidananda in essence, is what an enlightened person or Jnani sees as the world. And here, Guru says here, Jnanikku Sattulaga Chitta Sugasurubam. And Guru goes on to say that one reality only manifests as everyone's world experience, and this manifestation is well within the harmonious and cosmic order involved in the realities unfolding as this world. So this world experience is not anrada or insubstantial. It is a preconceived erroneous notion in the seeker's mind that makes her ask the question about the persistence of the world experience. A mere intellectual understanding of Guru's words will not help the seeker to realize this unity. Rather, she should take a quantum leap beyond the limits set by mere intellectual understanding. The unity of truth is clear to a jnani like daylight spread by the dazzling sun. However, an ajnani who does not realize this unity is no better than a blind man who complains of darkness even when sun is shining bright. The seed of the banyan tree carries the potential to grow into a huge tree which has no resemblance to the tiny seed. Similarly, the unmanifest reality has all the potential to cause manifestation of innumerable entities of the whole world, in the whole world. At the same time, it is imperative to realize that reality undergoes no intrinsic change to bring forth the world appearance. And this phenomenon, where perceivably different effects appear in one causal reality, despite the reality itself undergoing no change, is called vivarta in Vedanta. And in snake of the rope snake analogy, the rope did not become the snake to result in the snake appearance. The snake form was superimposed on the rope through a complex interplay of inadequate light and observer's past experience with snakes. So the seeker has to intuitively perceive that but for the presence of the rope, the specific circumstances which led to the perception of the snake and the snake appearance itself would be non-existent. So avidya, which led to the superimposition of snake form on the rope, may seem to be a big obstacle to the seeker since it hampers her unity vision. But the moment it is realized that avidya is also unconditioned consciousness in essence, it just ceases to be. So when meditatively examined, only nija bodham or self-aware consciousness exists. So till now we have mainly considered the sat and the chit aspect of reality. We have come a full circle to the point where the seeker intuitively perceives one unconditioned consciousness in all manifest forms, including herself. And so it goes without saying that such a reality which engulfs the seeker's self is one value which is value of all values, and it is beyond any value notion. And this ultimate value can never be considered other than oneself, for denying this value is like denying oneself. So Guru reminds us that it is this very same Ananda that exists and manifestly shines as everything. So the question about a person having a sensory experience of a world would arise only if there is a person existing by herself and there is a world existing by itself. So in the mind side, the seeker should be able to perceive that she and her world are just manifested forms of the unmanifest Atma. So all these are pradibhasa or illusory phenomenon, just like mirage seen in a desert, the blue color seen in the sky, or imaginary flowers that seem to bloom in the sky. So despite being illusions, all these three have different orders of apparent existence. So mirage can almost be tangibly seen at a distance. The blue of the sky is inapproachably far away. So the flowers seen in the sky are just figments of imagination and not even perceptible to eyes. Still all of them have only space as the underlying existent reality. Without space, none of these would be. Thus, it has been made adequately clear that an all-encompassing reality pervades the I sense and the world sense of the seeker. Seeker seems to possess an I sense because of the constant experience that I am the knower and enjoyer of the world as well as the doer of actions in this world. But Guru reminds us that in the ultimate reality, which pervades us the Atma in all these experiences, there exists no I sense. At the same time, it manifests as the I senses of every manifest form. So by means of its own magic like Maya, it assumes the form of everything. Its omnipresence, or rather its omnipervasiveness, is similar to a yogi who may seem to be present at multiple places at the same time. The yogi can do so because she identifies herself with the reality and hence can sportively move around at various places at the same time, manifesting variously. However, the yogi does not think that she is the doer of any unearthly feats. While ignorant onlookers may marvel at the actions of the yogi is just being herself. The fundamental question which was being answered in this composition was that if only one reality has existence, how does the world appearance happen? Properly considering and meditatively contemplating what Guru has elucidated till now will make the seeker understand that the question is no longer valid. So no answer needs to be given for an invalid question. Satchidananda only is. The seeker should raise herself to the status of a Dridabodha, or the one who is stabilized in pure unconditioned consciousness. So using the rope snake analogy for a last time in this poem, Guru likens the state of Dridabodha to someone who is fully convinced of the existence of rope only and nothing but the rope. So there is no question of any snake for such a person. And taking a step further into the analogy, we can say that a fully realized person has not only realized that only the rope exists, but also sees the act of perception and the perceiver as forming part of the rope only. As humans, we often say we believe what we see, and yet it is ironical that our own very eyes, which shows us the whole world, can never directly be seen by us. The eye's ability to see is governed by an illuminating principle behind it, which cannot be seen by the eye itself. Similarly, reality or Atma, which is unmanifested consciousness, which is conscious of every one of its manifest form, cannot see its own unmanifest, unconditioned form. Now this is because it does not ever exist without manifesting, and all the manifest forms are like wheels or conditionings which hides the unconditioned Atma. The seeker has to mentally eliminate the visible world form of Atma in order to intuitively awaken into that consciousness which sees all. It is to be understood here that such a sadhana or mindful practice does not result in the seeker seeing the Atma or reality ultimately. Rather, the seeker and her sadhana get submerged in that ocean of consciousness. In the last verse of this beautiful composition, Guru exhorts the seeker to develop an eye for reality. A blind person also has eyes, but it is not endowed with an eyesight. For such a person, it is actually immaterial whether her eyes are kept open or closed. Here, we should not fail to notice that Guru says, Ullil mevum arivu, or the consciousness which functions internally. And this is to reiterate the fact that whatever the eye sees is an apparent form of consciousness which functions both internally and externally. And in a similar vein, Guru says, it is not enough for the seeker to just know as an intellectual fact that it is one pure consciousness that simultaneously manifests as a seeker and our world. That is just like possessing an eye which may or may not be capable of vision. Rather, the seeker should realize an all-encompassing unity vision of reality in which there are no divisions of the seer, seeing function and the seen. So with this, I conclude my presentation. With my mind filled with inexpressible gratitude, I offer this short presentation as a flower at the feet of my Guru, Guru Muni Narayana Prasad. Om Tat